think we have some connection issues, but Mohamad should be connecting soon. لا الو ما اسمعك. Can you hear me? الو الو
جرب بدون بلوتوث.
اوكي يا الحين اسمعك. اهلا
ممتاز.
مساك الله بالخير.
يا
يا هلا مرحبا، شو اخبارك؟
الحمد لله.
عاش من شافك. How's it going? How's everything? حبيبي
نور ما شاء الله.
يسلمك حبيبي بنورك، الله يبارك فيك، الله يسلمك. قبل ما نبدأ we want a cultural crash course lesson. تقول حق المشاهدين what is this واللباس يعني التقليدي العماني.
بالك طيب ولا يهمك. اولا هذه الدشداشه العمانيه، الثوب العماني.
انتم تسمونه دشداشه ولا ثوب؟
نسميها دشداشه.
اوكي حلو.
اكثر ناس تسمونه دشداشه. طبعا عندك في مسقط يعني اللغه العاميه والهايبرد، فيمشي عندنا الثوب، يمشي عندنا الكندوره.
ولكن كندوره بالامارات،
الكندوره الاماراتيه اكثر شيء
اماراتيه.
نحن عندنا نقول دشداشه. وهذه الكمه، طبعا الكمه هي نفس مثل يعني كاب، لكن على الستايل العماني. يعني هذا
حلو
شويه التاثير جاي من شمال افريقيا او شرق افريقيا بالاحرى. وطبعا نلبس العمامه في المناسبات الرسميه، ولكن قلنا عشان اليوم كاجوال ووجودكم حضر ما يمكن كاشكين اكثر منك عاد.
لا اشتاوي. لا حبيبي منور. ولا بس في بعض الناس كانوا يسمون العمامه شيء ثاني. I forgot. يا شنو؟
المصر نسميه مصر.
يا مصر. وتحت طاقيه صح؟
طاقيه هي طاقيه هي الكمه. طبعا الناس
الكمه هي
الكمه في بعضهم بدونها يعني.
اوكي حلو. Nice. يعني. That's our cultural يعني segment of the show.
Absolutely, that's great.
حبيبي. just for those who don't know, أكيد هذا الأخ الغالي محمد البلوشي أخونا من عمان. Graduated from Tamuk University. That's your undergrad. Masters IFP. Currently working in BP. وما شاء الله الحين بعد Middle East liaison for the Gaia project. You're a very busy man.
Very busy. I try to take breaks in between and dedicate some time to my family and my friends and my hobbies. بس لا يعني I think keeping yourself busy is the best way of staying alive. تعرف and feeling like you always have a purpose يعني in life.
Of course.
I relish it absolutely. تسلم على الانترودكشن على فكرة. تسلم. وأحب على فكرة أمسي على جميع المتابعين حساب وقناة QISPE، وأيضا على أعضاء جمعية مهندسين البترول في جامعة الكويت. طبعا جامعة مرموقة في المنطقة، ما قريبين انتم على قطاع النفط والغاز، ومعروفين يعني برامجكم وبالمواد والتخصصات اللي متعلقة بكل مشتقات النفط ومكامنها، والغاز أيضا كذلك. فيعني لكم حضور إقليمي سواء كان في البيبر كونتست اللي هي البحوث، مسابقات البحوث العلمية، وكذلك ايضا على الصعيد العالمي معكم في التحديات التنافسيه في البترول، وهي طريقه اصلا التقينا فيها انا وانت تذكر يعني.
صحيح.
الله عليكم يعني. واحب اشيد بهذا الشيء واحييكم يعني جميعا على العمل.
الله يجزاك خير. الله يحييك. الله يحييك.
وشرف بكم وجود بكم اليوم.
الشرف لنا حبيبي. الله يسلمك. I told you that before we start and we get into our topics, and I have a couple of things that we want to talk about. قلت لك راح أقول لك شنو علاقتي مع عمان.
هذا اللي مشوقني أصلاً حالياً. أسمع
يعني أنت كنت مستغرب لما قلت لك نزوة آخر مرة. شلون عرفت نزوة؟
حتى ما حد يعرف نزوة غير مسقط. قول لي.
أنا جدتي من أصول عمانية، من جبل الأخضر. إذا تعرف جبل الأخضر اللي هو بالداخلية بس قريب على نزوة. أيوة بالضبط. فعشان كذي هذا السبب. فأهل عمان عمان يعني لهم مكان خاص في قلبي يعني. انا عندي عرج عماني بعد
ما شاء الله عليك صراحه.
حبيبي.
هذه فعلا يعني شيء مفرح وجميل جدا نسمعه يعني.
الله
انا
يجزاك
الحين
خير.
مصدوم فقاعد احاول
احنا كلنا اهل الخليجيه يعني، كلنا انت راح تلقى ان في احد عنده عرج من مكان وكذي.
يا اولاد عمي احنا كلنا نتخاص
انا
يعني
كلنا عيال
نعرف
عم صح.
كلنا قلوبنا على بعضنا يعني. فيعطيك الصحه والعافيه. وانا صراحه ما
الله
had no
يعافيك.
idea جدك من اصول
I
عمانيه
said I'll leave it till the live to see the live reaction.
Honestly, I'm still shocked by them. I'm still trying to process this. بس شرف وفخر لنا كبير وانتم اهلنا وجماعتنا وعزوتنا.
الله يجزاك خير حبيبي. الله يبارك فيك. So the first thing that I wanted you to talk about a little bit was your undergrad experience. Yeah, why you graduated from TAMIC, maybe some of the difficulties you faced, and like, you know, advice that you can give to current undergrad students that you think they would find useful.
Absolutely. So one thing that, or one term I would sum up perhaps my experience as an undergrad, and even in my life after, and the ventures that I went into, was that it's unconventional. I certainly didn't draw that path for me in the beginning. And I was having this conversation with you, Aslan, at the age of 18, 19, I suppose, when we step into that undergraduate role. You're expected to have life figured out and understand what you're going to do for a living and which disciplines you're going to venture into. And one of the things that I was adamant to do يعني كنت خلاص مقرر معزم على هالشيء اني ابغى ادرس في قطاع الهندسه، مجال الهندسه. وطبعا في مجتمعاتنا يا تكون دكتور يا تكون مهندس، لكن انا تدري عن هالشيء. لكن بغض النظر عن هاي يعني انا كان عندي مثل شغف في المواد العلميه، في الرياضيات، في سواء كانت الفيزياء او الكيمياء. فتطرقت لمجال الهندسه وذهبت الى تكساس A&M. طبعا انا من النوعيه ما اعرف عاد في احد من المتابعين هنا يمكن يعني can relate to this. I get very homesick يعني خصوصا في فتره 2012.
انت ما قاعد في عمان، انت رحت لدوله ثانيه قطر.
رحت دوله ثانيه بس انا هاي اول تجربه حالي يعني، بعد كان عمري 17 سنه بس اول تجربه حالي اني انا اعيش مكان ثاني. فحتى كنت يعني دائما اقول حل الوالد والوالده يعني بدخل الجامعه في عمان وخلاص يعني بستقر هنا وما بطلع. وهاي ويقولوا لا شوف انت يعني it's not about whether you or not to go to university in Oman or even abroad. يعني both are suitable options. Just يعني pick the best possible opportunity you have. I applied to Texas A&M University of Qatar. It was funny actually. I applied to the main campus. I had no intention of going to the Qatar campus.
The main campus in the States, you mean?
In the States, in Austin. Some of the colleagues in Yom and Tambik who are joining us might be surprised by this, but I didn't have it in mind to go to the Qatar campus. I applied to the main campus, but then my career advisor في المدرسة forgot to send my transcript, high school transcript, to the main campus.
Okay.
Obviously, I wasn't best pleased, but that was the deadline for that was like January or somewhere around that time. فما قدرت أروح أمريكا وما قدرت إني أروح المين كامبس رغم إن هم they had one of the most lucrative engineering programs. فقلت طيب ما مشكلة خلاص هذا ما من قسم ونصيب لي إني أروح للمين كامبس، خلني أقدم حل البرانش كامبس. They still have a deadline that is in front of me. It's not passed. It's not elapsed. So I applied in A&M Qatar. Alhamdulillah, I got accepted. I went to the welcome reception, which is like an orientation that they have for the students. I تدري أيام الأويل prices were $120.
إن شاء الله نشوف هالأيام مرة ثانية.
الأيام هاي ما تدري لو تردنا الأيام ولا لا. بس هالأيام يعني كان they used to fly you over and يعني free of expenses. They would cover you for accommodation, for flights, just for you to see the university and get a feel of it, and decide for yourself if you want to come. That personal touch that they had and the spirit, يعني the Aggie spirit itself, I was sold. فلما رحت هنا قطر, I felt like the culture was very similar to Oman. It wasn't a huge shift in that sense. يعني the environment, the surroundings, it wasn't a massive change from what I was accustomed to. لكن في نفس الوقت التحديات كانت موجودة. يعني من ناحية إني أنا أول مرة أعيش بعيد عن أهلي. يعني I have to cook for myself. I have to, take care of these things that you never get taught at school. Basically, financial planning, and also managing your time as a student. عرفت؟ فأنا رحت في فترة كنت صغير في السن ودخلت مجال الهندسة الميكانيكية. أول سنتين.
Oh, okay. You entered mechanical first.
I entered
Okay. Okay.
exactly.
عجيب.
2 years later, after 2012, I was, to say the very least, I was struggling in terms of my performance and my courses. I wasn't passionate about what I do. And I felt that I had no reason to wake up in the morning to go to classes. So how am I going to have a reason to wake up in the morning and go to work, 4 or 5 years from now?
I think a lot of people can relate with that sentiment.
I would imagine so. And here's this is one of the things that really stuck with me at that time, and I carry it with me every single day. And no matter what it is you do, it doesn't have to be, whether it be petroleum engineering, mechanical, or law, finance, accounting, any of those disciplines. Just make sure that you're good at it and you're passionate about it, and that you are utilizing the areas of strengths that you have to the maximum. What am I good at? What are my areas of strengths, and what are my gaps, and how can I work on my gaps? فأنا at that very early age, still I thought to myself, listen, I don't have any passion towards mechanical engineering. I don't see myself doing this. وأنا ما من النوعية اللي بقوم من النوم الصباح عشان أدفع الفواتير. I'm not going to pay the bills. I would rather have more purpose about what I do. Obviously, I recognize also that's not a luxury that everybody can have, but at that time, I felt like this was a necessary change I can make in my education. Okay. I looked around, I asked faculty members, and ترى أينام قطر كلها 4 برامج من ناحية الهندسة الميكانيكية، الكهربائية، الكيميائية والبترول. بحثت في هالبرامج وتكلمت مع أعضاء الجامعة والبروفيسورية، وجدا اقتنعت ببرنامج البترولي. أول شيء عجبت بالcourses in geology. I loved the fact that I'm able to really delve into the characterization of different structures, formations, depositional environments. وهذا الشيء جدا أعجبني في البرنامج البترول، ودخلت في المجال في 2014. طبعا one thing I didn't mention is that I was very fortunate to get the scholarship من
اوكي الحكومة العمانية قصدك ولا؟
ايوه وزارة التعليم العالي في عمان.
حلو.
لكن as you can imagine they were not pleased about me switching my
صح you went on the
بالضبط.
صح.
فقالوا لي نحن بنسحب منك سنة، لأن هم عادة يعطوني 5 سنوات. كل حد يحصل 5 سنوات كماكسيمم كوتا for him to go abroad So أنا قالوا بنسحب منك سنة وما راح نعطيك الدعم المادي بالناحية الألاونس والتويشن قالوا contingent on how you perform. It was really tough. I had to make the decision and trust my intuition because my parents were hesitating on it. Friends of mine were saying, are you sure this is the right move? And sometimes, when you back yourself and you believe in, listen, I can be the best version of myself if I go down this path. If I don't, I'm always going to be someone who is treading water. I'm not going to be performing the best way I can. I took that leap of faith. And it's easy now to look back and say, that was a good decision to make.
But at the time,
at the time, nobody really has, and how can people have faith in you when you don't even have faith in yourself at that moment in time? It was a very, a challenging spell that I went through. فلله الحمد, I turned it around, and I went to in 2014 احنا عندنا مثل study abroad experience where you can go to College Station اللي هو main campus for a period of 4 to 8 months. I went there, I caught up on a few courses, took some research with a professor هناك اسمه توم بلاسنجين. معروف الحين هو
okay, he's the he's a
exactly. So I took a research opportunity معه هو. وسبحان الله the stars aligned and I came back having accomplished a lot in those 8 months and caught up with the program. وبعدين I joined SPE. SPE is really where I found my stride. That is where I tapped into my passion towards the industry and towards networking and enhancing my own personal professional development. طبعا when I say these flowery words I make it sound beautiful, but really بدايتها على فكرة كان مع الشباب. نحن كنا في أعضاء الشابتر في الجمعية ونقول خلينا نسوي ايفنتس يا اخي وتعرف ندخل كذا ونعمل له باربيكيو ونطلب لنا تعرف catering and stuff like that وهذا we have a good time it was just that. It was just really a group of friends starting that, and the amount of exposure and industry engagement and development that it gave me, I'm forever grateful for. And I still continue to give back to the society all these years after because of how much it's given me and allowed me to reach this position. يعني. فالحمد لله تخرجت في 2018. So مثل ما قلت انت الحين 2012 انا بدأت 2018 I finished. So that took me 6 years to graduate, man. You know? So this is why انت الحين لما تقول لي let us like interview you, and I'm very grateful ان اخترتوني ان اكون ضيف عندكم ومتواجد بين اعضاء الجمعيه. I thought to myself now, really? Like they want to interview me because it took me 6 years to graduate from A&M.
No, just so that you know, we're not the only chapter who wants to interview. I have other chapters also.
I've heard.
Yeah.
It's in the works, inshallah. بس ما تقصرون وهاي ترى شوف يعني في النهاية you are a product of the experiences that you go through. I had some challenging times, but also that allowed me to grow.
To grow and become who you are.
Alhamdulillah, you know, I was able to then progress to the next step, which I'm sure is going to come soon. But if there's any questions about the undergrad experience at A&M, I'm happy to take any, because I know that I didn't go to
specific if anybody wants to send a question, you can just send it through the question answer box, and we'll address it to Mohamad. My qasr. So when you graduated from Tamak and you finished your undergrad, well, okay, wait. First of all, let me ask you a question. Many people in Kuwait University, I'm sure this applies to anyone in any university, would ask, what's the minimum GPA I should graduate with in order for me to go and complete my master's? What's the minimum GPA? What's a good GPA? And what's like excellent that you would say you don't need to worry about anything? Whatever program you apply for, you're basically in.
That's a great question, and it's a question on everybody's mind, and it was on my mind. You know, not so long ago. We're talking 2-3 years ago. It was on my mind. يعني I went from a student who ما يخفى عليك يعني I was, and I try not to do this, by the way. I try not to be the person who relates to everybody. يعني تعرف when you have a conversation مع حد and you go, I know how to feel, عرفت, and then you look at them and you're like, no, you don't really know how to feel. You haven't gone through the experience I've gone through and the hardships that I've faced. And I try not to do this. I try not to say, and I can relate to each and everybody on the call or yourself. But no matter what situation or circumstance that you've gone through in university, I've probably gone through something similar. I went from being a student who was called a liability by the head of the department, the chair of the program at the time in 2014. He called me a liability to the image of the program. Okay, I went from being that to the head, like the lead ambassador of the petroleum engineering program in 3 years. The person who gets called upon when there is industry showcases, when there are lectures, when there are opportunities for engagement with companies that are partnering with the university. That kind of change is feasible. You can do it. It's about a mindset. It's about setting yourself these short-term goals and working towards them. Okay, and being realistic in your targets, but also specific in what you want to attain. زين. الحين جيت على سؤال الجي بي اي.
نعم.
طبعا the easy answer I can give you is as high as possible. عرفت? So obviously as much as you can acquire, that's the easy answer. I'm going to give you the easy answer and then the detailed answer. So the easy answer is high as possible. If you are right now at the 2 or 2.5 level, hovering in that region, 2 to 2.5, you want to get it up to a 2.5 to a 3 to be able to at least have a decent academic pedigree that you can match with your experiences outside of it, your extracurricular activities, your leadership opportunities, your roles that you've taken on, your internships. But the higher your GPA, the less value or weight the other things have. Okay, so obviously, مثلا if you want to go to an IFP or an Imperial or a no matter what, an A&M or something like that for masters, you want to be aiming towards having a 3.5 plus GPA, right?
Okay.
Now, having said that, I didn't have that GPA when I graduated. Okay. I didn't. As a cumulative, I did not. Now, one thing I want to emphasize on is wherever you have gaps, try to make up for it somewhere else. So relinquish the need to have control over everything. So if you cannot control, يعني شوف الحين مثلا أنا قعدت مع نفسي قبل 2 سنين ما أتخرج وقلت here's what's going to happen if I get all A's in my courses. Like in my remaining courses, literally I have like 30, 40 credits. If I get all A's, which is very difficult, but let's just hypothetically assume, if I get all A's, I'm still going to finish like with a 3.2, 3.3, right? That is not going to be enough to, on its own, that's very important, on its own, to get me to where I want to be. So how can I can't control الحين what has happened in the past. I can't go back in time and really, you know, like sort of give that, like, you know, Mohamad in 2014. Like
we wish we could, but we wish we could, but we can't. Yeah.
We wish we could, you know, and as much as we say in we're a product of what we go through and what we experience, sometimes you're like, oh gosh, like I wish I went back in time and be able to like give him a slap in the face and tell him to snap out of it. But you can't do that. And so what you have is what's in front of you. And so الحين, okay, how can I amplify my academic and professional profile, عرفت? من ناحية the way that I brand myself, the way that I project myself onto universities, my application as a whole, يعني, as a well-rounded unit or product. How can I make it appealing for any opportunity that I'm after? Whether it's master's, whether it's a job, عرفت? You can say, okay, right, so I've had a 3.1 or a 3.0 or even a 2.7, a 2.8 GPA. It's not as high as, for example, the ones who have honors, okay? But I have been involved in the SP student chapter in KU. I have been, you know, a lead ambassador in this social investment initiative, in this community involvement, right? I have participated in these workshops that allow me to transition into the workplace. I have these certifications. I've taken these courses outside of university in data science, analytics. We'll talk about those in a bit. But basically, how can you, يعني basically, يقاس أحاول أقوله إن أنت as a product, you as Ibrahim, me as Mohamad, what sets you apart as a candidate when you're applying to those opportunities, when you're seeking those positions, those you know, graduate programs. You're more than just a number. This is one thing I want to specify. You're more than just a number, and it's how you sell your case. فأنا for example الحين لما قدمت حل IFB وبنتكلم عن الموضوع بس لما قدمت حل IFB, I highlighted the fact that I have a 3.8 or a 3.9 major GPA. Okay. Major GPA is not a thing, right? I mean, it doesn't even show up on your transcript, but you highlight it because you're like, okay, look, this is my performance in petroleum engineering courses,
which is my sector, my industry.
بالضبط. So you're basically sending the message in the reason as to why my cumulative is slightly lower is because of other courses, not the petroleum engineering course or whatever program that you're seeking to specify or go into in your graduate school, right? Or as a job. يعني and take on additional things. يعني for example أنا لما تأخرت بسنة وغيرت البروجرام مالي, I had a choice to make. Do I sit down and play FIFA for a year or whatever, like, you know, just go out with my friends or hype, or utilize that year, be involved in research, take part in Petrol, go to SPE, take a minor in geology, which I did, and all of these things combined with the reasonably يعني above average GPA that I got at the end of my program, which I didn't have على فكرة. أنا كنت من صنف التوز عرفت للنهاية. coasting with الربع يعني مع الشعب فلين النهايه وبعدين عاد شويه ارتفعت يعني وصلت above 3 الحمد لله, and that was the platform I needed to spring me onto my graduate school. I'm not sitting here on a high horse and telling you all in but
I think most people would appreciate that and they relate to that, and they need to hear things like this, that it's not just about your GPA, it's about you as a whole, your other technical skills, the social events you've been involved with, SPE, Petrol. I think that's, some people need to hear that. They need to know that. And talking about masters, why did you choose IFP?
Again, I will caveat this, and I'm being cheeky with this response.
انت اخذ راحتك, قول اللي تبي تقوله عادي.
ما هو احنا قاعدين كاجوال يعني فقلت باخذ راحتي.
كاجوال مفتوح. ايه.
I will say I didn't choose really IFP. IFP chose me.
Okay.
That's and the reason why I'll say that is the following.
Okay.
The kid inside me wanted to go to Imperial. Okay. And I had applied to both those universities, the Imperial and IFP. Alhamdulillah, I was very fortunate to get into both. Now it was a challenging and competitive program to get into, but again, because of the fact that I have really worked on elements outside of my academic performance and involvement, that allowed me to actually be of a candidate that's viable for those universities. My cumulative was around 3.3-ish. Okay, not a freaky kind of cumulative. It's not incredible, right? It's decent. It's above average slightly, but it wasn't to the level of taking your pick, whichever university you want to go into. Lakin because of the way that I projected myself in other elements and how I conducted myself in the interview process for both these universities, you sell yourself. تعرف الحين مثلا أنت إبراهيم, you're a brand. And this is one thing I also want to touch on in a bit, but you're a brand. Think of yourself in Nike, Adidas. You're also, Ibrahim, you're a personal brand. So what do you want people to associate you with, right? You want them to associate you with being knowledgeable in this subdiscipline, in PTA, in finance and strategy. These are all things that you control the narrative. You can tell people that I am very skilled and knowledgeable in this. Now, of course, you need to walk the walk. You can't just talk the talk. You have to back it up. But honestly, you cannot underestimate the value of you selling yourself as something to whoever you're having a conversation with, whether it's an entity, an organization, a volunteer group, a university, no matter what it is. You control the narrative. And this is something I always tell people. It's very important to remind them of that. They feel like they're always on the defensive. لا, بالعكس, take the initiative. قدمت على هالجامعتين و I got accepted to both. But IFP offered me alhamdulillah a full scholarship to go and study there. So it was tuition free, and also I was provided a stipend اللي هو مثل إعانة مادية. That was too good for me to turn down. Not just because of that, but also because التكاليف للإمبيريال جدا عالية وأنا ما بغيت الأهل أكلفهم. هم كانوا مستعدين لكن ما بغيتهم إنهم يتكلفوا بالتكاليف لمدة سنة. More than that, to be honest, I was passionate about reservoir engineering. I wanted to go into a specific sub-branch or discipline of petroleum engineering, which is reservoir geoscience.
So IFP is known for that, then I assume.
They're known for
That's
that.
What you're trying
the
to say.
program is very specific towards that. The program in Imperial was only petroleum engineering. It was very theory-based as well. IFP, it's more practical. There's more applied.
Okay.
الشيء اللي جدا جذبني ال IFP إنه I was one of only 2 fresh grads in that classroom, in that batch. We had people who had 5 to 12 years worth of experience.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, I was going to ask you that later, but you brought it up now. Yeah. Go ahead. That's about
هو هاي كان القيمة والمكسب من إني رحت IFP إني حصلت فرصة إني أحتك مع زملاء who had vast industry experience and knowledge. 5 to 12 years worth. You're talking about people who worked in offshore Angola, in the pre-salt basins in Brazil. كان عندنا حد who was working in SAGD, which is in Foster Creek in North Canada. We had people who were from Bolivia. We had people from Azerbaijan, from Nigeria, and they've worked in the industry before in Argentina حتى as well. From the tremendous amount of exposure you get outside of the coursework that you learn in the class, their feedback and input into the material itself gave me so much knowledge. And مثل ما قلت لك I was the only person east of the continental Europe in terms of
ما كان في عرب معاك ومغاربة أو شيء
أبدا.
مغرب جزائر لا.
رمضان was really في فرنسا لأن تعرف كان في عز الصيف وكل حد ما عرفت كان الدنيا عادية وكان الصيام عاد ساعات طويلة في اليوم لكن الحمد لله أنا I think the experience was very rewarding and it honestly gave me a perspective that was so different than the one that I would have had if I went somewhere else. Of course I can't tell you for certain what would have happened if I went there or that, but this was an opportunity that presented itself and it was too good to turn down. And I had to at some point tell myself, listen, يعني I know in you know you have this tendency and the child in you wants to go and to Imperial and live next to Hyde Park and all that, وهاي عرفت احنا جو لندن نحبه كثير.
ايه صح.
ولكن ultimately you go after the best يعني opportunity that you get, عرفت. فالحمد لله يعني that's how it worked out and I'm very grateful for it.
And I assume you picked up some French as well with that. Parlez-vous en français?
Petit peu français, un peu
petit peu de
français.
français.
Very, very
Très
small
bien.
amount. يعني عرفت.
C'est super.
والله
That's
يعني
good.
I was able to مثلا شوف talk myself out of a menu. If I'm lost, I get directions in the street, تعرف. أدوات أقوش يعني تعرف like هل small amounts. But
it's good. It's always good to pick up a new language, especially one that's international. Yeah. It helps even when you get into the industry. Yeah.
بالضبط اتفق معك. وهاي من الاشياء اللي يعني still an area development for me. يعني هاي I would class this as something that I need to work on and maybe شيء بسيط يعني of resentment towards the fact that I didn't get enough of time in France to actually يعني mix with the public and learn the language even more, because يعني the best way to practice a language is to be in the country itself and go out and speak with the public. وهناك فرنسا يعني ينبسطون لو تكلموا بالفرنسي.
They're very proud of their language. Yeah, they're very proud of their language
and they're very proud of it as they should be.
Yeah.
لا الحمد لله يعني I was able to pick up a little bit of French. The school was very kind. They offered us night classes, complimentary, free of charge.
But the classes, the petroleum classes were in English. يعني the program is in English. There's no French involved whatsoever.
Fully in English.
Okay.
It was an international school, fully in English. It's a French Institute of Petroleum, but يعني IFP school is a multicultural school, and it offered programs in English. But they were kind enough to offer us classes in French twice a week, every Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. بس بين SPE والماستers you know professional development and traveling a lot. I did a lot of traveling صراحة, going on weekends حتى to the UK and other places.
Nice.
I made the most out of the experience. يعني فلله الحمد, it was really great.
Of course. You touched on it previously. So the question is, إن شاء الله يعني لما واحد يتخرج, should he directly go for his masters, or should I like enter into the workforce and work for 1 to 3 years, 5 to 6 years, you know, whatever it is, and then go and do a master's? What from your experience so far, what would you say is the best course of action to take?
So obviously, if I go based off of my experience, it's easy for me to sit here and tell you لأن it worked out for me, alhamdulillah, and I was able to land an opportunity after my master's the way that materialized. I would say it was a good decision for me to go straight to my master's after bachelor's. Now, the reason why I went for that is because when I had an internship when I was doing my undergrad, as everybody does in their final year before they graduate. So you have like a 2 or 3 month internship, especially in petroleum engineering programs. So I had that with PDO, and I went for 3 months and worked with their production programming team. Inshallah,
PDO, which is if some people don't know, it's the KOC of Oman.
بالضبط. شركة تنمية نفط عمان اللي هي البترول ديفلوبمنت في عمان. It's the equivalent of KOC عندكم انتم بالكويت. ويعني هاي الشركة يعني it's a giant machine فيها كثير من different disciplines and opportunities. فالحمد لله I was able to get an internship with them. I went and gotten part of the production programming team in south of Oman and worked on a project that was very exciting. It's actually in Huff and Puff production, which there'll be a webinar soon. So I did that, and I realized at that time, the amount of learning and knowledge that you acquire in 1 week at work is equivalent to 1 month or even more at university in studies, whether it's master's or bachelor's. I understood and saw that from day one. But at the same time, I felt like for me to be even better set up, from an opportunity point of view, لما أدخل الشركة وأقدم على وظيفة, it's an entry level job, I will tell them that I'm a master's graduate, and that sort of grade level or opportunity even after when you progress in your job and get promoted in the high, you have more doors open for you because of your master's. And so that was my mentality, at least. Obviously it changes from one individual to the other. Some of people will tell you مثلا إن أنا تخرجت من البachelor's ورحت straight into work. I did 3-4 years of work, and then I went and did my MBA because I acquired work experience. Or I did another master's in something that is different than precisely what I was working on, but it allowed me to make that career switch. يعني يقول مثلا I was working as a pipeline or design engineer, or مثلا maintenance engineer, or operations, drilling, completions. And then I wanted to go and work in something يعني like in terms of new well delivery or production or reservoir. So I make that switch by taking a different discipline in my master's that will allow me to set me up very well for that. Or if I want to go and do strategy, finance, portfolio management, I can go into a business program, and that will set me up very well to do that kind of thing at work. So it really is about your preference. And if you want to go to work right after bachelor's, go and do it. I didn't feel I was ready. To be honest, when I graduated from bachelor's, يعني رجعت خرجت من تكسينم قطر ورجعت مسقط, and I was so sure in that I'm not ready to actually go into work right now. I still need some time. I still need some added academic يعني development and exposure. هاي رقم واحد. رقم اثنين, تعرف احنا شعبنا في الخليج لما نبدا نشتغل ونستقر, عرفت؟ نكون مرتاحين وينزل الراتب وهاي, ويعني تعرف ضغوطات المجتمع, وايضا يعني الواحد لما يكون يحس نفسه انه he's in his comfort zone, you don't really want to step out of your shell and go somewhere else and expand your zone development. It's a lot easier. بالضبط, it's a lot easier now because you're still يعني in the educational phase. You're still in that zone. It's fresh in your mind what you just studied in bachelor's. But it's a lot easier to go to your master's. I saw people who had like 10 years of experience come in from the industry into the master's program at IFP. Very knowledgeable, very competent, but لما جاوا أخذوا الكورسز والexams والprojects وهاي, تشوفهم يعني شوية بدوا يشتغلوا.
They struggled with the academic part, huh?
They did, because a lot of
there was a 10-year gap between.
Absolutely. يعني الحين تخيل أنت مثلا calculus, fluid flow and porous media, these kind of like really very theoretical oriented type of courses and curriculums and programs whereby you have a lot of expressions, derivations, software use. عرفت if you متعود مثلا تستعمل أنت Petrol or Eclipse في الجامعة, وبعدين تطلع وتروح تشتغل في الفيلد in operations for 10 years. And you've never worked on that, and then you come back and have to do it again for your master's, assuming you take a petroleum engineering master's. Yes. It's going to be really, really tough for you to get back into that education phase. فواجدين they struggle. يعني تعرف, ultimately all of them, alhamdulillah, يعني graduated with flying colors, but it was a struggle for them to get to grips with the intensity that we are accustomed to when we're in education. تعرف, because work can be very different. But it's really a personal preference, a choice. I made a decision to go to a master's. Alhamdulillah, لما رجعت يعني I was again, one of the things that you can do is, even if you go for a master's, you make sure that you pick a program that gives you industry exposure, that has an internship component in it. عرفت? So basically you're able to do the program and also go and get a training program at a company, KOC, Total, Shell, BP, anywhere. عرفت? And be able to get the best of both worlds and be set up very well for your professional life afterwards.
How useful do you think an MBA is, from what you've seen so far in BP, for example, or in general in the industry? How much of a difference does it actually make?
So if you had asked me this question 2 years ago, I would have had a very different answer.
Okay, that's interesting.
Than the one I have right now.
Explain why. Explain what you think now and why you thought that.
I'll explain why. So if you had asked me a couple of years ago, I would tell you absolutely. I think an MBA is a program يعني that obviously you need work experience to be able to get into, but the skills that you acquire in an MBA is the ability to يعني have a holistic view of the business. Okay. Understand different components that go into the strategic management, the portfolio of the company, the financial aspect of things, the commercial elements, عرفت, the legal حتى. So it gives you a very broad understanding of the bigger picture as a professional. If you're a technical person like we are, يعني we're in petroleum, you don't really get that exposure, or you don't really get that knowledge in a يعني a scientific based program that we have. عرفت? So you're kind of siloed, you're kind of يعني boxed in. فلما تروح إلى MBA, you're able to get that. So I would definitely recommend it And I still do, by the way, but I just think the picture has changed now. I think the pace at which the industry is moving, and the energy sector is moving, is one that is more aimed towards digital transformation, data analytics, data science, AI, machine learning. عرفت the skills that you can يعني acquire that will be more resourceful for you in the future are coding, programming, عرفت being able to be digitally savvy يعني when it comes to use of softwares, of programs. Those are the type of things يعني I would recommend people to venture into, and it doesn't have to be أصلا a master's program. You can take courses that are offered there by different platforms يعني that also يعني complement what you have in terms of technical knowledge. And so MBA is good, it's useful. It is a booster in terms of putting you in that مثل ما تقول يحطك على منصة قدام the leadership and the management of the company that you're part of, and to say, okay, this guy has the capacity to lead a team and to be able to يعني, personify the values of our company in a managerial position. But
because in my mind, it's kind of like a badge of honor, you know what I mean, or like a statement to say يعني شوية prestige. As, I have an MBA, you know. I mean, this is the perception I have of why people go for it.
It is, and to be honest, listen, and I've seen a lot of people who put that in their signature. يعني عرفت like فلان MBA or a PhD. عرفت, or حتى الحين I'm seeing PMP, Project Management Professional.
Okay.
So I'm seeing a lot of these يعني, and حتى I have a few friends who put MSc next to their name, and I'm like, please give me a break. يعني,
it's all part of the personal branding, huh? It's all part of the personal branding that you mentioned.
It is. And listen, and by the way, يعني, I will not knock off anybody for doing what they deem is appropriate for themselves. Just to يعني, really project their personal branding and public profile in a way that they feel that it gives them the best kind of visibility. Like, and for me, it's beyond that. يعني, for example, if I want to go and do a PhD, I'm going to ask myself, why do I want to do that? يعني, is it because I want to steer into education? Do I want to go into a research type of role at the company? Do I want to write publications and publish them and be a subject matter expert in this specific part of my discipline or field? So these are questions that I would ask myself if I want to go into a 3-4 year program like PhD. The last question I will ask myself is, Wallah, I would love to have Mohamad Balushi /PhD on my name. That is of no interest to me. I mean, obviously it comes with the territory, it's great, but that isn't why يعني, you should sort of
you should go for
aim to go into or venture into these type of programs. But always ask yourself, how can this يعني, solidify the areas of weakness that I have, cement them, and fill in for those gaps, and also allow me to utilize my strengths in the best way possible. Really يعني, give me a platform to progress in my career. If it does, if the answer is yes, then go for it. MBA would be great. يعني. It allows you to actually have more breadth and not be narrow. بالعكس أصلاً يوسع المجال حالك. ممكن تدخل في مناصب إدارية خارج يعني نطاق الهندسة نفسها. I would recommend it to those who want to take it. I don't think it's as important or crucial now in this age and era where we have so much transformation and we are built to adapt, not built to last. I think it's less important now than it used to be, but that's just my honest opinion.
That's a really interesting take on it. Before we go to the next segment, I just want to ask, this question has been on my mind. Please explain to me, I don't even know how to say it. What is do you say Aggie or Aggie?
Aggie.
Aggie, okay. What is an Aggie? Because I see it everywhere and I'm really confused. I first read it as Aggie, and I was confused on what it means. Yeah.
I understand the confusion, and you know, we have a saying حتى in A&M, in Texas A&M, is that there's a spirit that can never be told. So basically, from the outside looking in, you don't understand it, and from the inside looking out, people think that you're kind of odd for the way that you converse and the dialogue that you have. So Aggie is anybody who's gone to Texas A&M. Not just that, any family member, any alumni who's already graduated, you're once an Aggie, always an Aggie. Now the term Aggie comes from agricultural and mechanical. So Texas A&M stands for agricultural and mechanical.
Okay. Now it makes
so whoever goes to A&M is called an Aggie. right?
How it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's a strange word by itself if you don't know what it means.
It is. But like this is the term that was coined over 100 years ago, and it's very famous because our football team and all of our athletic teams are called Aggies.
Yeah, it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
And when you reach senior year, you get the Aggie ring, which is a sign of you having completed 90 credits. And it's a very sacred thing. When people get the Aggie ring, it's a huge honor, and it has their name engraved on the inside. It has the year that they graduated, and people wear it years after they graduate. I
like the idea of that. I like it. It's something nice.
Thank you. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.
Do you want to move on to the presentation, the thing that you sent me?
Sure. Yeah.
You want to talk about that?
I was curious as to what your audience might have been interested in hearing. So I prepared a few snippets or slides. قلت أوريك إياها. But one of them that I wanted to actually ask you to pull up and show on the screen.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, tell me.
Is the slide? I think it was the one that talks about how best to brand yourself, but not just the personal branding. It's more that it's not a zero-sum game. There's no, it's not like the queue has gotten longer. So I think there is one where you see like kind of like a cartoon of a queue, right? And I don't know if you can see that in the screenshots.
A cartoon of the. Is it
like
don't just flatten the curve. Don't just flatten the curve.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, 1 sec. Yeah, I'll pull it up. Yeah, but you can continue talking till I.
Absolutely. So I suppose one of the objectives of having this live session today is to have this laid back but non-technical kind of conversation.
Yeah, a lot of people are asking for that.
And rightfully so. And I think the beauty and purpose of that is always to touch on a level that's very relevant and resonant with everybody who's tuning in, but also try to emphasize on the fact that how can I, as a petroleum engineer, where it feels like and maybe it's not so much the case in this part of the world, but when you go to other places, you can't really wear the title or badge of petroleum engineer on your chest and say, I'm a proud petroleum engineer. It doesn't get the treatment that we get here in Kuwait or Oman.
Is it because of the anti kind of like hydrocarbon petroleum thing and pro-environmental, or?
But because we get tagged to the notion of
destroying the environment
and the climate, right? And we are damaging the environment and all of it. Basically, we are not the agents of systemic change towards low carbon solutions. So
we're the bad guys.
اسمح لي.
أنا قلت we're the bad guys. We're the bad guys in the story.
بالضبط. I'm trying to like sugarcoat it, but really we are. أنا حتى أتذكر لما كنت في لندن في 2018 رحت مؤتمر، وكنت من ضمن نخبة أو مجموعة من تم اختيارهم أن يكونوا في هالفرصة. It was Leaders for Tomorrow Scholarship مع the Energy Conference, the Energy Forum. ورحنا فندق اسمه دورتشستر، وطبعا هناك كان في مثل تكريم حل الرئيس التنفيذي لشركة بي بي. فلما دخلنا هناك على الفندق كان في مظاهرات خارج المكان، وواحدة من the ladies that were protesting screamed at me like across the hall, and I was like wearing a bow tie and a suit. وكنت حاط مثل badge like because I was so happy with my badge because I'm able to like enter the program, the gala dinner. فطبعا انا منصدم، لان بحياتي ما متعود ان على هالنوعيه من المشادات والمظاهرات. فتصرخ علي من الجانب وتقول لي Are you one of those who burns oil? وأنا شفت عليها كذا و I didn't say anything, but like that's the moment I realized that we are not necessarily providing the world the energy the way that they want it, just the way that they need it. We only provide them the way that they need it, but not the way that they want it. So that opened my eyes to how petroleum engineers are not viewed in the same light everywhere around the world. But at the same time, I think we give ourselves a lot less credit than what we should in terms of our ability to have transferable skills.
كخليجيين قصدك يعني؟
لا كبتروليوم انجينيرز ان جنرال.
كبتروليوم انجينير صار.
بتروليوم انجينيرز كل حد بيقول لك يعني بيقول لك يا اخي المهندس الكيميائي المهندس الميكانيكي عنده المتسع عنده الامكانيه انه يعني يتخصص في مختلف المجالات ويذهب الى شتى انواع الشركات. لكن لو انت مهندس بترول ما عندك امكانيه انك تروح مثلا تشتغل في investment banking or become in aerospace يعني become like knowledgeable in aerospace or go into any other type of engineering that's outside of the realms of petroleum.
Which is not true.
It's not true because I think we underestimate our ability to يعني be adaptable, have strategic thinking, have the capacity to actually transfer our skills beyond the confinements of what petroleum engineering is. So one thing I think we don't give ourselves enough credit for as petroleum engineering students is that we're perhaps the only discipline, okay, that get taught very early on the importance of cost and value in a project, okay? So we get taught about the economics, the financial aspect of things, as well as the technical part of things, okay? We get exposed to the subsurface concepts that enable us to understand the geology of formations, how things work. From an environmental sense, if you talk about carbon capture or hydrogen,
hydrogen, we need to talk about that.
We'll talk about that in a bit. We'll talk about it in a bit. But these are all solutions that require deep subsurface knowledge, okay, about the overburden, about the formations, about all these repositories, reservoirs underneath the ground, that only petroleum engineers and geoscientists have the conceptual understanding of through their academic background. So this is one thing that I think we overlook. When it comes to being able to flatten the curve, which is what this slide says, we have to be able to have that ability to distinguish ourselves from the crowd. Okay, so when you go and apply for an opportunity for a position, what sets you apart? Yes, okay, I'm a petroleum engineer, a reservoir engineer, production engineer. But what makes you different as well? Yani what are the qualities that I bring to the table that enable me to be a more well-rounded candidate outside of the realms of what I've just studied? So this is the idea behind this slide. And if I've learned in petroleum engineering the basics of property evaluation, reserve reporting, cash flow analysis لما تتعلمها أنت في project evaluation, or basic financial modeling. So these things allow you to go into investment banking, for example, or into data analytics or financial planning. So these things are opportunities, are jobs, are positions that you're able to take on as a petroleum engineering graduate. None of us look at it that way. Environmental engineering, طيب أنا الحين I can be part of the solution as well as being I don't have to be part of the problem, right? So all these ways of being able to reduce our emissions and the greenhouse effect contribution that we have will require different elements, not just one. It's not about lowering the amount of oil production or producing more gas or having CCUS or renewable solar and wind. All of these things combined together will allow you to be able to get there, not just one aspect. For the ones listening in the call who feel like the sector or industry that they're in is bleak, let me assure you.
A lot of people think that.
Let me assure you, okay, that 46%, okay, of the energy mix in 2050 is going to be oil and gas. Okay, high ownership. Yes, we're very dominant now, and we might be less dominant in the future, but you're still talking about half the energy that's provided and supplied to the world on a daily basis is going to be oil and gas. Okay,
but it's still not a very good sign that I'm not sure what's the current figure about. If I don't know if you know. I'm not sure.
The current figure is probably a lot more. I mean, we're talking north of 60%. But at the same
time...
So
we're going to go below 50%. So that's not exactly a good sign.
We are. But also, supply and demand. So الحين مثلا if you think about it, we're 7.6 billion people around the world. In 2030 we're going to be 8.6. In 2050 we're going to be 9.8 or 10, I think. So what's going to happen? Obviously, in a post-COVID world, you're going to have a rise in demand.
Yeah.
Okay, a demand for energy is going to increase. Okay, all these alternative sources of energy that are coming into the mix and becoming more profitable. We have the advancement to be able to implement like solar, like wind, like biomass. Of course, they're going to come into the fore and be important. But a cleaner, safer, more reliable, cost-effective, and efficient operations in oil and gas will continue to be the order of the day for years to come. I think you look at these companies, man, KOC, BP, Shell, how are they going to generate the capital to be able to finance their areas of growth? نتكلم عن solar وعن wind وهاي all these different alternative energy sources. من وين بطلع الكاش flow to be able to actually back these sectors financially and make sure that they are growing and developing and getting to a point whereby they're profitable? All of that is going to come and be underpinned by your hydrocarbon production. Okay, so all of these assets that are owned by multinational companies as well as national oil companies like KOC are going to be so necessary to supply the energy that we need, whether it's oil or gas. طبعا there's different uses for each. But those are very, very important. And this brings us very well into our discussion about hydrogen, where you can pull up.
Yeah, I want to, I'll pull it up, but before I pull that up, I want to pull up another slide from your presentation. I think you can guess which one it is. It's one of my favorites. Although I think my my screen or my section is covering it, so I don't think they can actually see it. But it's a picture of the shark in the bowl and the shark in the yeah, I liked it a lot. Yeah. Maybe if you wanted to talk about this briefly. Because I really think it was really powerful. I really liked it when you talked to me about it. Yeah.
Likewise, man. I think this is something that it blew me away when I first looked at it and I read it. And it wasn't that long ago, actually. It was about a year and a half that I came across this picture. And it hit home with me, like it struck a chord, because it spoke to everything that I've sort of set myself as a code to live by, as a principle to really behold and follow. An interesting fact about the shark, نحن سمك القرش دائما لما نفكر فيه نقول هذا سمك مخيف، عرفت، جبار. لما ندخل في المحيط او نكون مثلا فوق قارب ولا شيء كذا، كل شيء ولا تطيح في البحر وعاد تغرق ويجيك سمك القرش، عرفت، عاد تورط. The shark was always an animal or a type of fish that is very fierce and feared as a result of that. But one thing people perhaps didn't know about the shark or سمك القرش, if the shark is born and it's put inside a small fish tank, which you see on the left-hand side, it doesn't grow beyond 8 inches long. Okay, it only goes to 8 inches and it stops. If you put it inside an ocean, it grows to 8 feet tall. 8 feet tall, you're talking about well above 2 meters long. So the startling difference in how this animal can grow and amplify itself in size based on the environment that it's in really just spoke to me, because it told me, listen, it's all about where you put yourself and the people you surround yourself with and the environment that you're in. Change your surroundings and watch yourself grow. This is something that ذكرني. أنا من النوعية اللي دائما نحب الراحات، نحب الأشياء اللي تكون comfortable for us. But at the same time, listen, if you push yourself and go outside of your comfort zone, you are going to benefit and reap so many rewards for having done it. So this is a prime example of that. Nowhere have I seen it more evident in the shark. Yeah.
I think the analogy is a powerful analogy. Okay. I'll pull up the hydrogen one, because this is actually something that
من الشعب ما في
أسئلة من الشعب. في كم سؤال. خلاص we'll touch upon hydrogen quickly بعدين ناخذ أسئلة من الشعب.
طيب.
The thing about hydrogen is like, I mean, of course, now Biden is the president, and that's a whole other, that's something we can talk about for a long time, about how that's going to affect the industry. But like I read that he's going to be putting in $40 billion into, clean energy, renewables, that side of thing, which is not exactly, I guess, good news for us or for the industry. And you have like all of these new hydrogen fuel cell companies like Plug Power.
Yeah.
They got a huge investment from South Korea, and South Korea themselves, they said they want to generate some huge number of, I don't have the figure right now, but by 2050, they have a plan. They have a hydrogen fuel economy plan going on. So it kind of seems like, some people are thinking about hydrogen. Is this the new oil?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
So it's a very valid question, and I do echo and share your sentiments towards how this is going to affect the overall energy blend and mix. But one thing I will tell you أول شيء is hydrogen من وين يجيك؟ يعني it's أول شيء, this is the most abundant element on Earth. Okay, it is the smallest one. To be able to produce energy, it requires the least amount of like a large amount of quantity in terms of molecules, but low volume, and granted يعني. But it is a small element and molecule. When you put it inside a pipe, the first thing it wants to do is just escape. This is a byproduct of natural gas production. So there's two ways to produce hydrogen. Okay, and like really like basically what I'm saying is harness it and be able to process it and have it be available for heat generation, for power, for electricity, for fuel in terms of trucks. احنا عندنا الشاحنات هذه اللي في طريق القويفات اللي في الخليج تروح تمر وتعدي عند الحدود. هاي كلها heavy load trucks. They require hydrogen.
Yes.
And so hydrogen is being spoken about as the fuel of the future and the energy source of tomorrow. But there's two kinds of hydrogen that this chart shows. You have the first kind, which is green hydrogen, and that is generated with electrolysis. So it's generated by water. Water, as you know, is H2O. So in that process, you're separating the molecules of oxygen and hydrogen, and you generate hydrogen, which is green hydrogen. It's ready to be used into whether it's electricity purposes, chemical processes, different kind of industrial systems and utilities, basically utilizations. So that's green hydrogen. And then you have blue hydrogen. So blue hydrogen is a byproduct of natural gas production. فأنت الحين حقل غاز بتنتج فيه كميات الغاز اللي هي either dry gas or wet gas or retrograde, depending on the features and fluid characteristics that you have in your reservoir. With that, obviously a byproduct, you'll get hydrogen. Okay, and hydrogen is processed in those facilities and then also sent to the streams whereby they're necessary and required, and hydrogen is needed as an energy source. So if it's blue, that means that along with the production of hydrogen and the extraction of natural gas, you also have a compressing and sequestering and storing of carbon dioxide into the subsurface. So you're storing carbon. You're capturing it and storing it into the subsurface. So CCUS is also happening at the same time. So that's blue hydrogen. Gray or black hydrogen is when you are producing it from natural gas, but you're not implementing any CCUS approach at the same time. But this is like really useful because it gives you a holistic view of what is the approach now in the future by companies that are shifting towards this energy transition trend. So what they're saying is that we want to have a net zero future, a future whereby there is no high. So either we balance the emissions and make it net zero by storing carbon dioxide in the subsurface and not emitting it in the atmosphere as flue gas, or we just produce hydrogen as green hydrogen, environmentally friendly, through electrolysis by water. So the one that is by electrolysis is very costly. It requires a lot of technology advancement to be able to أصلاً be profitable at scale. So in small scales, it may be profitable, but at large scale to be able to generate enough to power cities and countries, it's not going to be to the extent that's viable and favorable financially from an economic sense. When you talk about a project, as you would when you produce. Yes, okay, there is hydrogen, but hydrogen is a trendy topic because of the fact that
ترى
yeah.
Can you hear me? اوكي هو قطع شوي هو قطع okay yeah the quality suddenly the quality of the video, at least what I'm seeing, is not I can barely see it. I don't know. That like I can see you, but it's really blurry. It's like really low resolution. I don't know if the people are seeing the same thing or but I think we can we might give it a few seconds. It might يعدل نفسه ما أدري.
طيب ما عليه تبني
خلاص.
أرجع لك مرة ثانية ولا شنو؟
Okay, that's an idea. Okay, that's an idea. If you want to try that,
طيب
okay, that's an idea.
يلا
يلا بس حبيبي. يلا حياك حبيبي.
يلا.
We're just going to wait for. Yeah, it's not clear. Yeah. That's why I told him to just. Oh, there he is. 1 second. Let's get him back. ايوه كذا وايد احسن. ايه ممتاز.
الحين شوف نفسي، تصدق انا الحين شوف نفسي لما رجعت وقلت منو هاي؟
زين. يعني قصدك انا ولا انت منو هاي؟
لا انت نور الشاشه يا حبيبي. انا اللي كنت قبل يعني مو واضح ابدا يعني
اي يا exactly حبيبي. حياك حبيبي. Do you want to make any last remarks on hydrogen before قبل ما ناخذ اسئله من الشعب؟
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. If you want to talk about the Biden situation, I don't mind, just in brief يعني.
Yeah, I think some people would be interested in that.
Yeah, and I think, listen, what this presidency brings is obviously a promise to get back into the Paris Agreement. So one of the first items on the agenda is for.
I mean, I think he signed it already, didn't he? Sign it already. Because he signed it already. Yeah.
And تعرف أصلاً هذاك, it was a bilateral agreement that was not contractual. So there's no contract أصلاً that stipulates in the you have to like abide by certain like metrics. Obviously, there was a primary target of 1.5, and then also 2 degrees Celsius was like the maximum quota that you can reach in 2050 or so.
For the world,
for the world, but like Aslan countries weren't really allowed to leave the Paris Agreement. Like it was done on the basis of this is a unique partnership between the scientific community and governments. And the US, I think, were the exemption in this rule, where they had like a opportunity to veto or like get out of it, which was very odd. Yani, this shouldn't aslan. I wouldn't want to go into the reasons as to why or whether or not this should be happening. But the US, for some reason, was the one country or one of the few that were allowed to like check out of the system and go out.
So you mean this was stipulated in the agreement that they had the option to check out?
They did have the option to back out, but it was the entire Paris Agreement was almost like it's called the handshake type of agreement or a gentleman's agreement. It wasn't like something that you're contractually binded by.
Okay.
Ground أصلا to be held liable أصلا for doing it or not. In the Trump administration, they left the Paris Agreement, and now he's come back into it. He's made a promise to invest, you've quoted the figure, you were talking tens of billions of dollars into green solutions, solar and wind.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money if you think about it, but it's also...
And more, like, I mean, he's pledged more to put in more. This is just like the beginning of it.
True. But you know, when you take that number into isolation as just a figure, you'll think that it's huge. But then when you remember in the Federal Reserve was pumping $1 trillion daily into the stock market every day from March until August, okay, to try to save the stock market from crashing. Okay, you realize that is literally change in comparison to what the government can spend. One thing about Biden is that he is not going to rock the boat. He's not going to change the status quo, business as usual. He is less of a wild card than Trump is. Okay,
he's a centrist.
He doesn't want to ban. He's a centrist. He's a moderate, and he's sold himself as that. By the way, one of the things that really caught my attention when he won the presidency was him and Kamala Harris coming on live TV at the same day and saying, now is not the time for us to be Democratic or Republican. Now it's time for us to be united and unify the country. And what he's really saying in that message, and people don't get it because they think, he's trying to give a soothing and calming and unified voice to the country. But what he's really saying is, Aslan, I'm going to play ball. I don't want to be Democratic. I don't want to be Republican. I'm a centrist. I'm going to be for my corporate donors.
All the United States of America.
but also, I am going to do the bidding of the corporations. So your Chevrons, your Halliburtons, your Exxons, right? All of these big corporations that have lobbying power and they have interest in keeping activities in the space of oil and gas still very relevant in the US. Oil and gas is going to continue to be the order of the day. Now, what the problem with shale is that it's not economic at the current prices that we have. Because to be able to produce shale, Aslan, the cost per barrel, the development cost per barrel, is such that you won't be able to produce it in the current market. So Aslan, it's normal to see in the US is not producing really high quantities. But once the market picks back up and demand rises, all these independents, all these oil companies that have the capacity to produce again will go back to doing so, okay? The control that Biden is trying to do right now is more legislative. It's more as an effort to align themselves with OPEC production cuts and to not make it so that the US is really steering off and disrupting the supply chain out of the trends in the market. So it's a temporary scare for a more permanent kind of increase in production that's going to come from the US. I believe that we are going to see a rise, not just maybe fracking is going to be very marginal and going to be very challenging economically, but it's not going to be for the fact that he wants green solutions. He stated very clearly in presidential debates that he does not believe that solar and wind is by its own going to be enough to supply the energy that the world needs and the US needs. He's very aware, and it's going to require a huge underpinning of hydrocarbons as well.
That's a good analysis of the situation. I think I'm low on battery, so I don't want this to close on us suddenly. So I guess ناخذ أسئلة من الشعب على السريع. Someone is asking على السريع, how's the petrol industry in Oman, and how is it compared to Qatar's? That's the question.
Wow, that's a great question.
But as quick as possible.
The easiest answer I'll give you, and very quickly and swiftly, is Oman is very similar to Kuwait. We are heavily reliant on the oil and gas industry to supply the economic agenda that we have. Our portfolio in terms of government is reliant on the market price of oil, because we have 1 million barrels of oil per day production. Obviously, that's a figure that's very small in comparison to what Kuwait have. But also, we have gas. We have natural gas. Do
you have huge deposits of natural gas? Or?
Very tight, very deep gas. But we have good basins in place for natural gas. We're producing offshore right now around about 4.5 billion cubic feet per day of natural gas. So we are diverse in that sense, but we're very reliant on the market price. and bond because of the obviously situation with the price of the oil barrels. That is the situation in Oman. In Qatar, obviously it's very different because they have the North gas field, and they're purely gas.
Is it number one or number two in the world? I think
number one.
I think it's number one or number two in the world.
Number one LNG export in the world. QP is the biggest company in terms of gas production on a daily basis. And they have oil, but they have very little of it, and most of it is onshore. You're talking to the tune of 200,000 barrels per day, which is dwarfed by the amount of gas that they produce. So obviously, in terms of power generation, they are advantaged because gas is versatile. It generates power and also transportation. But it's only petrochemicals. So that's a small summary of how Oman is in comparison to Qatar. تسمعني إبراهيم؟
There's another question, how to prepare for academia path. اسمعك بشوي كان يقطع. How to prepare for academia path and field path, but I think you touched upon that a lot already. I think we'll leave it here لأن أخاف إن هذا راح يسكر علينا. I want to make sure I save the live before, before it ends.
My last message, is أول شيء يعطيكم ألف عافية على الاستضافة وجزاكم الله ألف خير وهاي الشرف كان.
الله يعافيك حبيبي. I really enjoyed it. الشرف لنا حبيبي، الشرف لنا. حياك الله حبيبي.
جزاك الله خير، ويعني يعطيكم كلكم ألف عافية على جهودكم اللي تبذلوها بشكل
الله يبارك فيك حبيبي.
الضيوف والمحاضرات وكل الفعاليات اللي تسووها. Never be afraid to expand your comfort zone and go into the practical element as well as the academic element, and expose yourself to different aspects of the industry as much as you can to be able to enhance your personal and professional development. But that's going to be my last and parting message for this Instagram live.
It's a good parting message. حبيبي الله يعطيك العافية ونورتنا. وإن شاء الله we'll see you soon with the Huff and Puff. We're going to have the Huff and Puff webinar 10th of February إن شاء الله. حبيبي.
على تواصل. على خير إن شاء الله.
موفق إن شاء الله على التواصل حبيبي. في أمان الله.
على خير إن شاء الله.
مع السلامة في أمان الله.